Women who have a high sex drive do this. How to tell if your crush has a high sex drive. Leave a like on the video, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe to receive new tips. Women who have a high sex drive. Ever found yourself wondering if that woman that you are crushing on or just started dating might have a high sex drive? Well, wonder no more, guys, because we are about to dive into the captivating world of female desire, and I'm going to spill the tea on the signs that reveal that she has a high sex drive. So get ready to uncover some insider secrets that will give you a fresh perspective. Now remember, every woman is an individual with her own unique behaviors and characteristics, so while these signs can be helpful indicators, they shouldn't be used as definitive answers on their own. Instead, consider them pieces of a puzzle, and the more pieces you gather, the clearer the picture becomes. The more signs you spot, the higher the likelihood is, so let's dive in and start collecting those clues, shall we? 1. The frequent initiator. So, who is starting the flirting? Let's kick this off with our first point, and it's all about who initiates the flirting. Ever noticed her in the conversations breaking the ice with jokes or even coyly complimenting you? Well, my friends, psychologists say that a woman who often instigates flirty banter could potentially have a high sex drive. Now remember, it's not a foolproof sign, but if she's the one making the first move and sliding into your DMs more often than not, you might just be onto something. 2. Openness about sex. Oh, she's not shy about her preferences. Now let's move on to our next sign, how open she is about discussing sex. Now, women with a high sex drive tend to be more upfront about their preferences in the bedroom and aren't afraid to communicate what they want. So if she's making and blushing remarks about her likes and dislikes in bed, chances are she's got a pretty robust sexual appetite. Experts agree that open and candid conversations about sex correlate with a high sex drive. 3. Engaging in sexual humor. Does she chuckle in the bedroom? Ever notice how she laughs at those slightly risky jokes? Women with a high sex drive often engage in sexual humor, finding amusement in jokes that others might consider off-topic or slightly naughty. Why? Well, because psychologists say that laughter and sexuality are surprisingly linked, with a healthy sense of humor often suggesting a healthy sex drive. So if she's chuckling at your cheeky innuendos, it could be more than just her funny bone that you are tickling. 4. Liberated sexual attitudes. Taboo isn't in her dictionary. Next up, let's talk about attitude, specifically a liberated attitude towards sex. If she openly embraces and discusses sexuality without an ounce of awkwardness or inhibition, you may have found another sign. Experts agree that liberated sexual attitudes are a telltale sign of a high sex drive in women. If the word taboo seems to be missing from her vocabulary, she could be signaling a robust desire. But remember, openness doesn't equate to consent, so make sure every conversation and action is mutual and respectful. 5. Regular seductive gestures. Spotting those come-hither looks. Next up, we've got those captivating come-hither looks. A woman with a high sex drive may often throw seductive glances your way. Now, these aren't just your everyday friendly smiles we're talking about. That certain twinkle in her eye, the lingering gaze that speaks volumes without saying a word. Psychologists suggest that regular seductive gestures can be a clear indication of high sexual desire. So keep your eyes peeled for these, and you might just discover something new about her drive. 6. Expressing physical affection. Is she getting a little touchy? Now let's talk about physical affection. If a woman is more touchy-feely than usual, this could be another indicator of a high sex drive. Now, we're not just talking about the obvious touchy moments, it could be a subtle brush of her hands against your arm or the way that she leans in close to you during a conversation. Studies show that women with a high sex drive often express themselves physically. But be sure to read the room, guys. Consent and comfort should always be your guiding principles. 7. Frequent sexual fantasies. Does her mind seem to take a scenic route? Psychologists suggest that women with high sex drives often have a rich tapestry of fantasies. So if she openly shares that her mind often takes detours into steamy daydreams, it's a solid hint. It's her inner world that we are talking about here, gentlemen, and it's an honor to be invited in. Remember, these aren't just your run-of-the-mill dreams, so if she's sharing, make sure you're a good listener. 8. Highly responsive to your touch. Does she melt like butter in your hands? Moving on, let's discuss physical responsiveness. If a woman is highly responsive to your touch, melting onto your hands, it's another clear indicator. The response can be as subtle as a soft sigh or a goosebump or as obvious as a passionate embrace. Studies show that women with a high sex drive are often more responsive to physical affection. But guys, always make sure your advances are welcomed and reciprocated. It's about connecting, not rushing. 9. Passionate kissing. It's more than just a peck on the lips. Let's talk about kissing, and not just your everyday goodbye pet, but passionate sparks flying kind of kissing. Women with a high sex drive often express their desire through passionate kisses. If she's leaning into those breathtaking, toe-curling kisses, you are likely dealing with a woman who has a high sex drive. Psychologists point out that the intensity of a woman's kissing can often indicate her sexual desire. 10. Interest in erotica. Is she a devotee of passionate prose? The next telltale sign, a keen interest in erotica. Does she have a collection of sizzling novels tucked away on her bookshelf, or perhaps an e-reader full of passionate prose? Psychologists suggest that women who enjoy reading erotica often have a high sex drive. So if she is an avid reader of those racy narratives, she might be channeling her own sexual energy. But remember, guys, literature is just one avenue for exploring desire. Her interest signals openness, not an expectation for reenactment. 11. Excited by risky scenarios. Public places and surprise dates. Next, let's delve into the thrilling world of risky scenarios. If she gets a rush from spontaneous dates or a hint of excitement at the thought of making out in a semi-public place, this could indicate a high sex drive. Experts agree that an element of risk or spontaneity can spike adrenaline levels, which in turn can amplify sexual desire. But a word to the wise, always ensure you are both comfortable with behaving within the bounds of the law. 12. Bold wardrobe choices. Does she delight in flaunting her sensual side? Next, we come to wardrobe choices. A woman with a high sex drive might love showing her sensual side, which can be reflected in bold and confident outfit selections. Now, don't mistake this for dressing provocatively, it's about expressing her confidence and owning her sexuality. Experts point out that how a woman presents herself can often be a mirror of her libido. But remember, gents, appreciate her style but respect her space. Her dressing style is a form of self-expression, not an invitation. 13. Comfortable nudity. Totally at ease in her skin. Is she at ease lounging around in her skin, free from the constraints of clothing? Psychologists suggest that comfort with nudity often correlates with a high sex drive. It's all about body confidence and self-love. So if she's comfortable flaunting her natural self, you could be dealing with a lady who has a high sexual desire. Remember, though, this is a display of confidence and trust, so respect and appreciation are key. 14. Regularly proposes intimate encounters. Is her calendar full of romance? Moving on, let's talk about scheduling. If she's often the one proposing intimate encounters, it might hint at a high sex drive. A woman who makes an active effort to keep her calendar full of love understands her needs and isn't afraid to pursue them. But remember, guys, balance is essential. Be sure to do your part in initiating intimate moments as well. It's a two-way street after all. 15. Passionate discussions about sexual health. She knows her body inside out. Next up, we have discussions about sexual health. If she's knowledgeable about her body and isn't shy to discuss sexual health topics, it could indicate a high sex drive. It's not just about passion but also about health and safety. Experts agree that open and informed conversations about sexual health often go hand in hand with a high sex drive. 16. High energy levels. Is she always ready for some loving? Next, let's discuss energy levels. High sex drive often translates into high energy levels, especially when it comes to romantic encounters. If she's never too tired for some loving, you may have stumbled upon another sign. Studies show a correlation between high energy levels and an active libido. But it's essential to bear in mind that not every energetic woman has a high sex drive, just like not every relaxed woman has a low one. It's about reading the signs in their totality, guys. 17. Eagerness for new experiences. She's an adventurer in and out of the bedroom. Next, we look at her sense of adventure. A woman with a high sex drive typically has an eagerness for new experiences. Now, we're not just talking about trying out a new restaurant or going for a hike. This adventurous spirit extends to the bedroom as well. If she's keen on exploring new territories of intimacy and excitement, it could suggest a healthy sexual appetite. Experts agree, an adventurous personality often corresponds to a high sex drive. 18. Active interest in your fantasies. Ready to make your dreams come true. Does she show an active interest in your fantasies, wanting to know and fulfill them? This might be one of the most revealing signs. Women with a high sex drive often show a keen interest in their partner's fantasies. If she is eager to bring your wildest dreams to life, it's a clear indication of her own drive. Remember, communication is the heart of any strong sexual relationship, so be open, respectful, and considerate in return. 19. Enjoys the physical afterglow. Does she revel in post-sex satisfaction? That's right, how she behaves after sex can be just as telling as what happens during. Does she bask in the satisfaction, laying entangled in the sheets, the hint of a satisfied smile playing on her lips? Studies show that women with a high sex drive often relish the physical afterglow of sex. This lingering satisfaction can be just as important as the act itself. And guys, basking in the afterglow is a two-way game, so make sure you're there to enjoy it with her. We've just wrapped up signs a woman has a high sex drive. Now, are you ready to discover the signs that she's longing for intimacy or her favorite spots for sensual touch? Click on one to delve deeper. Don't forget to hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more. Leave a like on the video, and if you are new to the channel, subscribe to receive new tips. 20 shocking cognitive biases that secretly affect your love life, psychology of attraction and dating. Think that you were in control of your love life? Well, think again. Whether you are single or coupled up, hidden biases are shaping your love life. Ever heard of the recency effects or the familiarity principle? Stay tuned to unravel these and other shocking cognitive biases that are playing Cupid behind the scenes. Unmasking the halo effect. Don't let first impressions fool you. First up on our cognitive bias list is the halo effect, a fancy term that psychologists use to describe how our first impression of someone can cloud our judgment of them. In dating terms, if she's really gorgeous, you might automatically think she's also kind, smart, or funny without even knowing her. Be well aware of this, guys, because looks can be deceiving and can sometimes make us overlook the essential traits that truly matter. Understanding the confirmation bias. Are you just seeing what you want? Next, we have confirmation bias. This tricky little bias means you tend to look for evidence that supports your existing beliefs. So if you believe that she's into you, you might interpret everything she does as a sign of interest, even when it's not. Experts suggest that it's crucial to remain objective and open-minded. Remember, understanding her true feelings requires more than just hopeful thinking. Negativity bias. Don't let the bad outweigh the good. Here's a big one, negativity bias. Ever notice how you remember the one time she forgot your date more than the 10 times she surprised you? That's negativity bias at work, and studies show that negative events can have a greater impact on our brains than the positive ones. But guys, don't let a few bumps overshadow all of the good times. Everyone makes mistakes, and understanding this bias can help keep things in perspective. Unpacking the availability heuristic. Why the first thing in your mind isn't always right. Okay, on to availability heuristic. This cognitive bias makes you believe that if something readily comes to mind, it must be important or frequent. So if a past relationship ended badly, you might be overly cautious in your new one. But psychologists advise that it's essential not to let past experiences dictate your present, as each relationship is unique. Decoding the projection bias. She may not feel exactly what you feel. This is the tendency to think others feel the same way that we do. You might think she's head over heels just because you are, but remember, she's an individual with her own feelings and thoughts. Understanding this bias can help you communicate better, ensuring that you are both on the same page. Dodging the anchoring bias. Why first impressions don't tell the whole story. Ever heard of this one? It's when we heavily rely on the first piece of information we get. That first joke she laughed at might anchor your belief that you are around the funniest person ever. But be careful, guys. Psychologists suggest that relying too much on your first impression might prevent you from truly getting to know her. Confronting optimism bias. Seeing past those rose-colored glasses. Next on our list is optimism bias. It's when we believe that our future will be better than our present, and we tend to underestimate the likelihood of negative events. Sounds familiar? Like ignoring their little red flags because you hope things will just get better. Psychologists say it's crucial to be realistic in relationships and acknowledge issues when they arise. Busting the sunk costs fallacy. Don't get trapped in the past. Ever heard of the sunk cost fallacy? This bias can make you stick around in a relationship that's going nowhere just because you've invested a lot of time into it. Remember, past time is a sunk cost that shouldn't influence future decisions. Experts agree that it's better to look forwards than backwards when it comes to your love life. Questioning the familiarity principle. The unknown might be your match. Now let's talk about the familiarity principle. It's our tendency to develop a preference for things merely because we are familiar with them. This can make us gravitate towards potential partners similar to the past ones. But studies show diversity can enrich our lives and relationships. So, gentlemen, dare to venture into the unknown. You might find a treasure where you least expect it. Curbing the contrast effect. Avoid unfair comparisons. This cognitive bias can have you comparing your partner unfavorably to others. But remember, comparison is the thief of joy, especially in relationships. Psychologists remind us that everyone is unique with their strengths and their weaknesses. So let's appreciate our partners for who they are, not how they stack up against others. Rewiring the recency effect. Don't let fresh memories cloud your judgment. Let's dive into the recency effect. It's our tendency to remember and give more importance to what happened recently instead of looking at the whole picture. Ever found yourself fixated on that last argument instead of the months of great times? Well, you're actually not alone. Psychologists say it's crucial to take a balanced view of your relationship history. Overcoming hindsight bias. No, you didn't know it all along. Next up, hindsight bias. It's that sneaky feeling of, I knew it all along, even when you couldn't have predicted an outcome. It's like thinking you always knew that joke wouldn't land well after seeing her reaction. But remember, nobody's perfect. Even psychologists agree you can't foresee everything. So let's cut ourselves some slack and be kind in self-evaluations. Correcting the fundamental attribution error. She's not just her actions. Next, we have the fundamental attribution error. Ever caught yourself blaming her character for something she did once, like thinking she's unkind just because she was grumpy one morning? Here's a tip, try not to define her by her actions alone. Experts remind us that we all have off days, so let's practice some empathy and understand before we judge. Questioning the beauty bias. More than meets the eye. Now the beauty bias. It's our tendency to associate beauty with goodness. But remember, beauty is just skin deep, and attraction should go way beyond that. Studies show that emotional compatibility and shared values are key to lasting relationships. So, guys, let's look beyond appearances and get to know the beautiful soul inside. Challenging self-serving bias. Taking responsibility in relationships. This is when we credit ourselves for successes and blame others for failures. Successful relationships are a two-way street. Psychologists suggest sharing both the triumphs and the trials. So let's share the credit and take responsibility, gentlemen. It makes for a stronger partnership. Unpacking the just world hypothesis. Beyond deserving. Let's talk about the just world hypothesis. It's this inner belief that everyone gets what they deserve. But let's get real, guys. Love isn't always a meritocracy. Everyone has their ups and downs, and it's important not to judge too quickly. Psychologists suggest keeping an open mind and remembering that empathy and understanding win the day. Reshaping the endowment effect. Value her, not just the relationship. Up next, the endowment effect. It's our tendency to overvalue what we have, like thinking your relationship is perfect just because it's yours. But experts caution against putting your relationship on a pedestal. Instead, focus on valuing her as an individual. It's the person, not just the partnership, that truly matters. Stepping away from the bandwagon effect. Your love life isn't a trend. Then there's the bandwagon effect. Ever found yourself following dating trends just because, well, everyone else is? Studies show that authentic connections trump trends any day. So guys, let's not let the crowd dictate our love lives. Forge your path and let your unique relationship bloom. Challenging the status quo bias. Embrace change for a healthy relationship. Next, the status quo bias. This is our resistance to change, especially in relationships. Scared to take the next step. Remember, growth is a part of every successful relationship. Psychologists say it's important to embrace change and navigate it together. So let's muster the courage to evolve and let our relationships flourish. Breaking the false consensus effect. Embrace different perspectives. Finally, the false consensus effect. It's when we think everyone shares our views, including our partner. But isn't it our differences that make relationships exciting? Experts agree that understanding and appreciating diverse perspectives is key to a strong bond. So let's cherish those differences. They are what make your love story unique. Okay, so you've mastered cognitive biases. What's next, I hear you asking? How about learning the phrases that women cannot get enough of? Or perhaps you're curious, could you be the rare Sigma male? Click your choice to unravel more mysteries. And yes, don't forget to hit like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to stay tuned.